Hi, I've clicked onto today's tropical tidbit for Thursday over here in the Atlantic. Main feature of interest, Tropical Storm Richard that got named last night. Over here in the Caribbean, contrary to all the model beliefs for the last several days, the system did develop. The pattern made sense for it, with the SOI burst coming across and the overall pattern favoring some sort of a burst of upward motion in here and getting the storm going and lowering pressures. And we have done that. If we zoom in on here, you can see a tight circulation developing right there. We have a little bit of a swirly low coming down right there. I don't know if you can see it or not, right there at the end of the loop. So there's a double-barreled structure to this right now, but this is getting wrapped in, and this is going to tighten up over the next couple days. Notice the bands coming into it over here from the south. This is ready to go. Shear is starting to relax. We're going to start getting more outflow in here. Dry air will start to reduce, and as this comes across to the west, this is going to be strengthening. And we probably won't see too much rapid intensification today, but once it gets into this area in here, we could see this really go and become a hurricane. As I said, if this gets a core, this was key, if this gets a core, it could be a big problem for these folks in here, and that is probably going to happen now as the shear relaxes and we see how this is a fighter in here. Convection has not waned at all east of the center since yesterday, and we're going to have to start watching this really closely. Here's the water vapor, here's the trough in here that tried to tug this north, and now the northerly flow over here is trying to push this back to the south a little bit, and this is exactly the reasoning that we spoke of, coming to the north, getting forced back, and now it's going to come to the west and then get drawn north again. Notice this upper low back here over southwest of the Four Corners regions. This is going to be key in the future. This ridge right here is propagating across as this trough lifts out, and we're going to have this build into here and force this west, and then we're going to have some issues. Here comes the model set, and notice the idea coming around to the way I've had it for days now. And the interesting thing, the scary thing to watch right now are the hurricane models, JFDL and Hurricane Wharf, coming through the Yucatan Channel, keeping a path over water into Florida. This is the worst case scenario, is if the path remains over water. And although these models generally have a more poleward bias, and you can see they're clearly northeast of the rest of the models, even though they usually have a poleward bias, the scary thing is the 0Z run of last night's Euro actually does the same thing. If you see it here at the initial position, look how it comes down, comes across, and then the weakness in the ridge is sitting right here. Here comes the short wave, here's the storm strengthening east of the Yucatan, and it takes it right up to the Yucatan Channel in here. There's the short wave weakening and coming up in the stream flow, and then it takes it into the Gulf and up here towards Florida by the end of the run. A weaker system, but the track is there and it's all over water, and it's a little interesting to see that now. If the Euro continues to agree with the hurricane models, perhaps the guidance will start to shift more northeast. My path, let's get over here to a better map. My path still has this going into the Yucatan first and then curving up into the Gulf, which would weaken it some, but the possibility of this coming through the channel is there. It's definitely possible that this could happen, and we're going to have to be watching closely for this, especially if the storm strengthens a bunch. We could see it pulled up faster and more towards Florida. Looking at the European ensembles now, this is day 2, 48 hours, 500 millibar. Remember this low southwest of the Four Corners region. This has been a key part of this for a while now. If we go out to day 2, remember this piece, the reasoning was that the trough in the Gulf of Alaska would send a piece over here to phase with this as it came north and get you a trough over the central United States, and you can see that that happens. This is coming across, this is coming up. So we go out to day 4, and here's your trough. Not a very strong one, because remember the ridge is building in here. Remember the SOI favored building of pressures off of the southeast United States coastline, so you're building the ridge in here. Here's where the model says the storm is on the ensemble mean. So here's the short wave coming up. We go out to day 6, the short wave is gone. Here's where the storm would be on the model, and the stream flows flatter in here, but look what's coming behind this trough digging in over here. And I forgot to show you how it starts in the Gulf of Alaska up here. As this short wave's coming down, you see the bigger piece sitting behind. We go out to day 6, and that comes down here, and you're still having the ridge sit off the southeast United States coast. And then you go out to day 7, and notice how this starts digging in over here. And here's where the storm is on the model. Now this is a problem. looking at this, if we go out to day 8, look at how strong the ridge is now off the eastern seaboard and the big trough into here. The storm is probably trying to phase in, and this is a problem because if we look at the 200 millibar winds, this is day 5 where the storm will be in the Yucatan Channel by this time. Here's the trough to the north, and we see that here's the subtropical jet. At this particular point in time, this is ventilating the storm with a jet core coming out of the top of the system. So this is a nice place where the system is for now, but we notice that if this tries to come towards Florida, look, there's a big hefty subtropical jet in the way, probably going to shear it to bits before it gets there. But we go out to day 6, and we still see the subtropical jet here. Here's the storm, we're like, subtropical jet, still going to shear it. But notice the strong jet to the north. What does this mean? It means you got the heights rising, and here there's a big trough behind waiting to come on the scene. We go out to day 7, check out the big trough in the amplified jet, and look what happens to the shear over the eastern Gulf of Mexico and up the eastern seaboard. Look at what happens. You get outflow jets coming out all over the place. You get the ridging building in here, and all of a sudden you've got an environment aloft that is fairly conducive for a storm or hurricane to maintain itself in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. And it's the second trough that may be our nemesis with this storm, now that we can see the timing rather well, because now that we have the system developing, we can actually start to look at some details over here on the upper pattern, and this is something that's going to be an issue. If this trough digs in like this and we get the system coming up over water without hitting land, it could actually end up stronger in the long run, trying to affect the eastern Gulf of Mexico. That's why you see the GFDL showing things like this, a Cat 4 in the eastern Gulf heading towards Tampa Bay. This, I still believe, is way too overdone, and I told you yesterday not to worry about this. I still think that's the case. We don't need to worry about a Cat 4 or 5 running towards Tampa Bay out of the Yucatan Channel, but the conditions are ripe for it to become a major hurricane in the northwest Caribbean. If it can remain over the water, it still could hit the Yucatan, and my forecast still has this going over the northeast Yucatan before coming out. But if it happens to remain over water, and now that we have the European on board with that, it's something that we need to watch for. It could be a stronger storm, probably weakening as it comes in, but that means that the possibility of a hurricane coming into Florida is on the table as well. So we're going to have to keep a close eye on this. So for now, I would say Florida, don't be too worried just yet, but I would be watching this rather closely, because if it happens to avoid land, it could be a problem. So watch it, don't get too excited yet, but keep an eye on it, because the pattern favors this area of the world getting affected. I continued to repeat it over and over again that this area of the world was the center for where the season would end and the congregation of tracks would shift into here after the Cape Verde season shut down. It has done that. United States has escaped so far. May not escape entirely. You can still get a storm affecting these guys. Waters are getting colder in here, but that doesn't mean you can't get a hurricane of formidable strength coming in here. Wilma came in around this date in 2005. It does happen, can happen. Keep an eye on this. The models have underestimated it so far. That means we should be watching. Alright, that's it for today. Thanks for watching.